Final whistle has blown. The result is in. The red cards have been given, and now it's time to make sense of everything. Welcome to Football Insight, your home for Bafana analysis and other teams in the World Cup. What are you feeling, Mario, from the game? Your initial thoughts?
I think the key thing was going down so early. We obviously had a plan. We obviously worked on a structure, and I think conceding so early that kind of goes out the window a little bit. So now you have to open. You've got to be a bit more aggressive. You've got to press higher up the field. So I don't think we utilized our structure and our game plan because we conceded so early.
Kulam, how are you feeling after that result, that match?
Hindsight is a good thing, eh? I think overall it's sitting here and watching, it's a disappointing performance. More than anything, there was a lot of build-up and anticipation to expressing ourselves in a good way in the match. But it looked like we struggled in a lot of things, and probably starting with the back five and with the midfield three, almost saying that we want to play in a low block or medium to low block even, and not have too much of impetus going forward. But then with the two strikers, it gives you a little bit of a positive kind of side to say if we play out, we do have that options. But nothing really seemed to come together. So sitting here can say maybe nothing came, the plan didn't come together, but we don't really know from the inside what the actual plan was. So observing from the outside, a little bit disappointing in not having enough vertical or forward impetus that we could have. Weren't able to control the midfield, struggled even with a few defensive moments.
When you see the lineup, and we play in a back five, and there's no Rele, there's no Apollos, there's no Mshishi. What are your thoughts at that time? What's going through your mind?
I think, when Musi said that he called us, that there was going to be like a back five or back three and, like 5-3-5-2. I couldn't see it. I from the build up to where we, like just all the games that was played before this, it didn't even ring up to me that there would be a back five. So it was a little bit of a surprise, but I mean, like I said, Musi called it. He obviously had a little bit more insight into it, but nothing suggested that to me. I'm gonna be honest.
Musi, do you have sources at the Bafana camp? How did you know we're going to play a back five?
No, I was thinking because since AFCON we haven't like really won a game, and the last game we played at AFCON against Cameroon, we played with a back five, and it was a good game. We had chances, we just didn't score and convert those chances. We really played well, and Cameroon had a high or a plethora of attacking threats, which Mexico also have. And so I think I just felt that coming into the first game, not wanting to lose the game, trying to at least at minimum secure a draw, you would go with a back five. And when the selections were announced and Bradley Cross was chosen as well to go, that thought started stirring in my head as well, because we weren't sure about Mudiba's status. And I just felt if Bradley Cross plays, then we'll definitely be playing in a back five.
You can hear them.
Yeah.
Moving on to one of the biggest talking points of the game, it's definitely the first goal. It was a big blow for us to concede so early, especially at our own expense. Dale, there's big debate on social media. Was it Ronwin's fault? Was it Sitole's fault? Was it a bit of both? How do you analyze the goal?
If I can just jump into the lineup and what Musi was saying now also, in terms of our structures, I think we played with a little bit of fear because again we're in Mexico's backyard, so that makes it a little bit difficult. But at the end of the day, like Musi said, playing for a draw and getting a result in the first game also gives our team confidence. So I thought that was good. But then also touching on the goal, I think when Mokoena came back, even with a man down, he looked so good playing as that six. Every time he got on the ball, he was helping the team build up from the back, where we didn't see that as much before. So with a goal, I mean, I don't see that incident being the first one in the last couple of games. We've seen this picture before, and I know they target Ronwin, and we can go into so much detail that they passed to his right foot that allowed him to come out. But going back to the lineup, and then I'm jumping between the two, but it's also having a right-footed player on the left side, and then pushing him Bokazi out. So we had no comfortability really on that left side. Every time we went to the left, it's almost a long ball uncomfortably with his right foot or trying to come back in. And then it doesn't give Ronwen a lot of options. So I think then it was a forced situation that we spoke about it in AFCON a lot. Teams can force you into a trap. And that's what they did. You can see the numbers that they
Yeah.
put on the ball and the pressure that they put on. It almost forced that moment to happen. And they know Ronwen is almost enticed to play that pass, and he made it, and they came onto him and lost the ball, and next thing was a goal. So it's a picture we've seen before from the team. We've seen it at Sundowns also time and time again with that same trying to force play outside to the back. So I think the trap from Mexico was also very good. So we have to give them credit. And then we have to look at ourselves and be like, was that the perfect moment to be able to make that pass, or did they set it up for us to be able to exploit that?
Jolene, how did you view that goal? Was anyone specifically at fault, or was it just a mix of bad decisions?
I don't think it was, like specifically anyone's fault. I just think technically we weren't that good tonight. I think we lost a lot of balls. We passed to the opposition without any pressure. And this was one of those moments where if he had received the ball correctly, if he had, his first touch is good, then he gets out of it. But his first touch is a little bit away from him, and that gives the opposition a little bit of a chance to get onto it. So I think we need to go back and look at our technical ability. Is that really the balls we want to play with players that might not be as technically? If I looked at the passing of Mexico versus the passing of us, I mean, yes, our pass completion rate was maybe in the 80s or something, but if you look at Mexico, their pass completion rate was in the 90s. So at some point, we got to look at ourselves and say, are we technically good enough to actually play out of the back? And is that the right player to receive the ball under so much pressure?
Well, maybe I can just add something there as well, just with that. And Gula mentioned something at the start of the show about hindsight. Just with a goal conceded, the possibility of maybe having Jaden or Tebza as the first receiver in the build-up, because they're quite technical and they're quite clean and they can come out of pressure. So there's that possibility. Maybe one of those two could be the first receiver instead of Sithole.
So the goal's quite interesting because it reminds you of what Carl Walker spoke about in this famous interview where he says that Pep doesn't allow players to receive the ball on the half turn because you're giving the opponent an opportunity to win it. But if you receive it with your body in between the ball and the opponent, you have a better chance of not losing the ball. Musi, do you think that Sithole could have prevented this if he didn't choose to receive it on the half turn?
I don't really know because there was actually, I think, another Mexican player behind him. Like if he had let the ball run, I think there was another player who would be able to take it. I just think that if you remember, like a minute or two before that, we had a situation where Mexico did try press us at the back. We ended up coming out, and then eventually the ball went out for a throw-in. Okay, they won the throw-in from that, but we came out without really any sort of pressure on us. So I think that gave us some security to say, hey, we can actually play out. So again, that moment might have just had a few, like Shalene mentioned, technical errors which led to the goal. And to say receive it on the half turn or let it run, that's another matter because then that brings in scanning, that brings in the keeper telling you man behind or passing you to the side where you're free, because that's also a tactical aspect, and a technical aspect. Sorry, so I can pass you on the side, I can see you're free. That's my instruction to tell you to turn that way, right? So there's a lot of information that needs to be made there. But again, is Ronwen maybe shouting man behind possible? Yes. Is it very loud in that stadium? Yes. So you could have shouted it, or you could have said man behind, or it's a series of unfortunate events that led to that goal.
If I can jump in there also, we also make we spoke about a little bit in the AFCON, is when we make the decision like Ronwen has to think for what Sithole is going to do in that moment, not for only what Ronwen's going to do. So there, Imi was closed as well. And on the right side, CBC was also closed. So where was he almost going to go next? So no pass unless it's a first time high risk pass. But you also have two Mexican players coming very aggressively to come and put pressure. So there was almost no pass for Sithole to come out there as well. So maybe at that moment, Ronwen can say, let me rather just go long. But again, he pulls it off like Shalene said, and we don't have this conversation. And it's completely different.
Understood.
The decision is right or wrong depending on the outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In our first 30 minutes, we don't have a shot on target. We've conceded a goal. It seems like there's a disconnect in between the midfield and the strikers because the strikers are running behind, but the midfielders are playing to feed. And when the midfielders playing behind, the strikers wanted to feed. And it just looks like players are not connecting with each other. You guys have been in these situations where you train something and then come game day, it's not working out. It's nothing's working. What's going through your as a coach's mind in these situations?
Yeah, look, firstly, for me, playing with the back five, using a back five is not the best system to control a game because you lose a lot of impetus to control the midfield a little bit better, whether it's horizontal or vertical, and having good options to play out with or control the pass and play through the lines in progress. I think. Obviously, the idea of using the back five is to manage the Mexicans. But again, like I said earlier, we don't really know what the plan was. So to adjust the plan, maybe in the first 30 minutes, maybe a little bit earlier, maybe the coach looked at it and said, listen, they scored from a mistake that we made, not from creating too many problems. So you don't really know. However, I think besides the first 30 minutes, maybe a little bit of tactical changes or more tactical flexibility in the second half. We saw, and I don't know if Mash mentioned it earlier or before this, and I think you'll go into it in more detail. There was a little bit of reorientation with Mbokazi becoming almost an auxiliary left back and Aubrey pushing a little bit higher. But in possession, we struggled to control the game, and in a pressing sense, we struggled to get, I felt, the orientation a little bit correct because I felt we needed a more of an orthodox 10 when we still had a full team on the field. And you saw some of the times where Jaden was almost becoming the third person to press in, and their six became free. So we were missing something. So they found the six, and then sit Yaya and Tebza a little bit exposed. Who goes, who stays, what happens? And then you have a back three marking one player, three center backs dealing with one, and not really didn't seem to have clarity to me about who must step in and cover the midfield or cover someone in the midfield in those specific moments.
Just touching on the question that I asked, how did you handle when there was stuff that the team had planned but it wasn't working out on game day?
Yeah, I think sometimes the players are playing the game and they find the answers. There were moments in the game where our structure did change. We just mentioned it now with Mbokazi almost as a left back, and then Aubrey became a winger. So our structure changed a little bit, but initially our structure was three centre backs, one pivot, two eights, and then on the opponent's last line, we had width of Aubrey on the one side, width on the right-hand side of Sailor, and two strikers. The two strikers in position between centre back and full back. So you can see that was the plan. They wanted to create four players on the last line. As the game went on and we went a goal down, we still did that. But this time it almost looked like a plan with a back four with two central midfielders. And I think Gulam just mentioned it, Jaden at times almost trying to play between the lines, almost to try connect the team from midfield to attack, almost as a 10. And then again, still we had the same picture of Aubrey almost as a left winger. We had two strikers and then Sailor almost half and half, not on the last line, but not in a full back position.
Even with our formation at times, what was clever from Mexico is they kept pushing their left back very high. And then it allowed Kione. Kione is actually at our club in Saudi, Katsia, a brilliant player, but kept playing almost in that half space or a second midfielder as a 10. And that kept our wing backs very deep in defense. But when the ball got switched, I almost anticipated that our wing backs would be aggressive to the aerial ball and try and challenge, but they would stay inside and allow them to receive the ball. So those types of behaviors didn't make a lot of sense for me personally, because again, the role of the wing back would be to jump out and be aggressive and then be protected by your back three. So I didn't quite understand moments like that, but I did want to jump into the attack. It looked like it was two completely separate groups, like they just got flown in today, and the one didn't know what the other one was going to do. And Jaden had a fantastic game. I think every time he got on the ball, a first time pass to slow it down or to try and drive with the ball. But Lal also seemed off it today. I mean, two passes straight out the line that he did today. Him and Reiners ran like there was a rubber band connecting them wherever they were going on the field. So that again didn't make much sense. And then Magopa comes on, wins 2 aerial balls. So surely if you're playing 2 strikers, one of them needs to at least either be able to flick the ball, hold the ball, and Reiners and Lau didn't give us that tonight. They lost a lot of balls that came to their feet or sort of aerially, and they got dominated physically by the Mexican team. But yeah, I think if the two of them were a little bit more separated, I get what Mario's saying also with the wing backs becoming very high and giving us that width. But the two of them were just connected everywhere, and it was very easy for any ball to come in there, one defender to come and smash the ball, and then came over for us, and now we're on the transition. So yeah, it was interesting, but we would want to understand the plan, like Gulam said. We don't know what they actually wanted to do. And sometimes it looked very disjointed or disconnected between the attack and defense every time we won the ball.
Musi, what do you think we should change tactically so we can utilize our wing backs a bit better if we keep this formation in our next game?
Well, like I said in the last video before the World Cup started, that the 3 opponents we play are completely different. You know, for this next game now we have a very physical, tall side. You know, where 7 of the starting 11 players are taller than 1.85 meters. You know, so we've just lost one of our tallest players, Yaya, for the next game, and I was a bit worried that we could end up losing another player apart from the Timbers 1-1. I didn't see that happening, but I was actually worried about Mokoena possibly getting a second yellow, you know. But I think, I don't know if the coach is going to keep the same way of playing in terms of trying to maybe put on more taller players on the pitch, probably. But again, I think if you look at the last 25 minutes, the threat of Modau on the side as a wing back was highly evident, you know, that this is an outlet that we can use. He was extremely aggressive towards that last time, and he got into those areas, eventually winning a red card against Mexico, basically. And so I think if you're playing with a back 3 and your 2 wing backs have to be so aggressive. If you remember, like by Leverkusen under Xabi Alonso, you know, Frimpong and Guerrero were basically, between them, they had 19 goals and 20 assists in the season. I mean, that's the kind of, your fullback should be in the box. So when the right full wing back is crossing, the left wing back needs to be in the box. If you're playing that high, they should be in advanced positions. So, you know, it just depends on which shape we go with. But again, it offers a different game. So I don't want to say this approach that we took against Mexico is going to work against Serbia, because it's 2 completely different sides.
Mm.
Were you surprised that Hugo Bruce made no changes at halftime?
To be honest, I don't think anything surprises me when I look at Bafana's games, because I anticipate this kind of performance, to be honest with you. I think it was a little bit worse today because I saw a change of formation, which I didn't anticipate. So, like I say, I didn't expect a lot, and that is not because I don't have high hopes. I think it's because I've been watching their games and I've been just like anticipating from what I'm seeing. And with that in mind, a lot of things that happens within the game is just kind of, this is what I'm expecting. So I don't had from the beginning, I didn't have high expectations for them. But again, I want to hope that they can raise their level, which I didn't see today. So this is the World Cup now. I said it before and I will say it again. This is no longer playing in AFCON just against African teams. These European teams and CONCACAF teams, they play each other on a regular basis. So it's a higher level. It's more intense. It's a World Cup. So you would expect them to raise the level a little bit, and I just didn't see that today, so I'm not surprised.
You know, sometimes managers, you know, when a player makes a mistake at halftime, they'll sub the player off just to protect him because he wasn't having the best game, and he also made a mistake. So But surprisingly, Hugo Bruce made the brave decision, and he kept Sitole on, and he kept Tebza on, even though Tebza got a red card, I'm sorry, a yellow card quite early. Um, what was your thoughts on him deciding to not make any changes?
I think because it was only just 1-0, maybe he was going to give it 10 to 15 minutes and also just not to weather the storm, but still, keep that structure and maybe play to their game plan. Maybe it was to sit a little bit deeper, maybe it was to counter with the two number 9s. The problem is we started to press obviously higher, and you're playing against the clock and you want to get a goal, you want to equalize. The only issue is because we pressed higher, and when you play with a back 3, or at times it looks like a 3 and sometimes it looks like a 5, depending on the picture and the moment. For the red card, the line is broken, and the thing is, Sabisi, I think if it was Sabisi that keeps them on side. The more numbers you have in your last line, the more problems that can happen on your last line. What I mean by that is it just takes one player to keep one player on side. And now you've got the possibility of 3 to 4 players playing one player on side, Usually you might have just 2 centre backs, and it's maybe a little bit easier to control the line. So I think maybe he didn't make a change. Maybe he was going to make a change 15 minutes in, and maybe he would have brought on more offensive-minded players. But obviously with the red card, that changes things.
Yeah, and usually, at halftime situations like this, not that the coach is not in control, but he can also have a talk with the player, because you also don't want to just make the change because the player just made a mistake. You also want to find out like their state of mind. And so the player could have reassured him, Coach, I'm good, I can still go. And the second goal, I mean the red card, like Mario said, there was other factors leading to, that player making a run through, because CBC plays everybody on side. And so, yeah, I think that the coach, also does give some responsibility to the players to say, can you play? Obviously, it's still his call to say, hey, I'm taking you off because of A, B, and C. But he also maybe feels that he can give the players that responsibility. It just happens that it didn't work out in our favor today.
And Aubrey in that red card moment, also Aubrey is very high. He's almost pressing the right back at that moment, and then that wasn't consistent through the game. So maybe the game plan was different, and they said, okay, let's try and be a little bit more aggressive. But because he steps out, it changes the whole structure of the back line and opens it up. And then CBC is late to come across and try and assist in the middle, and steps up instead, and then gets the midfielder running through. So yeah, again, it's like everyone saying we're not with him, but it's nice to talk about it and kind of have these discussions to see what everyone thinks about it.
You touched on the wingbacks pushing higher in the second half. I noticed that as well. So obviously our game plan goes out of the window once Mexico gets an early goal. Is that an adjustment that could be made mid-game in terms of the wingbacks pushing higher? Because Mexico played out of the back with ease because it was just our 2 forwards that were pressing, and maybe one midfielder pressed the DM. Is that an adjustment that could be made mid-game, or do you have to wait until halftime to make such a big tactical adjustment in terms of pressing?
I think because they didn't use that formation in the friendly matches leading up to the game. Musi spoke about it from the AFCON. They landed late in Mexico also. So how long have they been planning? There's so much detail, like Musi said, goes into this back 5. And then it also goes into the midfield 3s. Where do they move and where do they press? Because a lot of the time, Reyners and Foster were moving, but it didn't look like they had a plan, like we want the ball to go to the left back or the goalkeeper or 6 or the right back or centre back, doesn't matter. But it didn't look like when they moved with a plan, because they moved very openly and there was chance to play through them. Sometimes they run together to one side and there's opportunity to play to the other side. And the ripple effect of that is that it meant the midfield 3 had to shift across. And then it opened the other side completely. So every switch then happened. And I spoke about it earlier. When that switch happens to a winger, both Aubrey and Mudau is not being aggressive on them. So then they've got full control of the game all the time. So I think to make a big switch like that would be better to wait until halftime, because the responsibility of everyone changes. Because when Aubrey goes high up, the midfielder has to step in to cover, the centre backs have to rotate, Modao has to come across. So there's so many movements that it operates in. That's why I think for such a big game, if you were going to play back five, rather just stay deep. Because now to go high and start moving everyone around the field, it's calling too much movement and too much chaos in the team. We're not prepared enough. Musi spoke about it before the call also, and Kulam said it also. Our centre backs also tracking runners. It didn't seem like it was well organized because everyone got pulled out everywhere. And when they get pulled out, there's holes opening, and who's the one that covers all the time? It didn't look clear a lot of the time. There were spaces all over, and Mexico were very clever. The types of passes or leading passes that they gave was, I think, incredible. So yeah, to answer your question, I think halftime is the time that you can do it, but there's just too much detail in it the higher you go up for the press, especially if your strikers are not working together.
Another big moment in the match was the second goal. Kulam, when you look at the goal, was it unavoidable in any of the first phase or the second phase of the goal? Could we have stopped it? Sibisi was marking someone, but he left someone at the back post. Mudau came, but he was too late. How did you view the goal?
Yeah, that goal starts with the organization to press at the start. So if you have a look at it, and just what Dale touched on is the two strikers or the two attackers are a little bit caught on how to mark, and you find a pass straight down the middle. It's three vertical passes that really unfolds the team.
Yeah.
And possibly with the organization, and I think that's the one where Aubrey also unfolded to press a little bit aggressively. And then they play through whatever the case is. But as they play through, everyone retreats. Sailor's a little bit late to drop back. He doesn't have. I think he should come back a little bit more aggressive to get goal side. There's a moment where Tebza is marking. I'm not sure who it is, and then he steps a little bit towards. He's running towards goal, so to his right, to the team's left, and then the player behind him steps into the box, and it becomes a 3v2 very quickly. And it looks like Sibisi is doing the wrong thing, but he's caught between a rock and a hard place. To be fair to Sibisi, he has to choose one to mark, and sometimes the most dangerous one is the one you can see that's in front of you. You anticipate the player behind you, they play it short, and he finishes, and you say he should mark him first. So he's caught a little bit in that situation. But yeah, again, from the offense, the defensive structure, from a pressing perspective, or a defensive organization from the top, missing a player, there's so many things that have come about from it. But in the final phase, yeah, if I think if we could have come back, maybe allow the 1v1 on the side, and then if they dribble pass, it should be Aubrey, and then maybe someone unfolds, and then you have a little bit more cover. You delay the action a little bit, force them to go backwards instead of allowing the space to make the cross and have this 3v2 situation. So avoidable, but maybe a little bit also inevitable, because that wasn't the first cross. And if you look at the previous games, that is kind of something they work on a lot and create a lot of moments from these crosses from the half spaces where the strikers running through. Jimenez had the chance in the first half, which I think would have been ruled offside had he got a touch to it. But you saw that there was the cross before that to Gutierrez, I think, at the far post as well, where it just went. So you can see it's something that they work on, and repetition is key. If you work on something often enough, it will pay off. It paid off in this game. In other situations, it may not have paid off in our game and in their next game. But yeah, there's things that could have been done better. But yeah, I think a little bit inevitable in that specific moment.
Maybe just to add on to that, Gulam, that you raised a good point about those crosses. Just a slight detail on it as well is on the right-hand side, they have a left footer playing a diagonal cross, and on the right-hand side, they have a left footer with a diagonal cross, and on the right-hand side, it's a left footer. So that they kept on looking at the opposite foot, and it's like a dink in behind, and it causes a back five or back three a lot of problems. So yeah, that was interesting as well.
Yeah.
Celine, how did you view the goal?
Yeah, from like I said, from what I saw, in my opinion, I agree with Gulam. It was inevitable. There was many times when Ronwen was our savior at the back there, whether it was a cross, whether it was a through pass, whether it was he was just sweeping at the back there. So I think it was inevitable that with so many attacks coming at us, so many crosses coming in, there was going to be one that might sneak in, and this was the one where the player at the back was left unmarked. And I mean, it was just easy for him to just nod it down and into goal. So again, inevitable, yes. Avoidable, probably. But again, they will have to go back, look at the goals that was conceded today, and ask themselves, what could we have done better? What can we do differently in order to avoid these kinds of situations in the next game?
I think the mistake is if they look at the goals, they have to look at the chances conceded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scoring the chances, not just the goals.
Yeah.
Speaking about the next game, Dale, what needs to change ahead of our next game against Czech Republic?
I think because where we are now, and we obviously fighting for a result and want to qualify for the next round, I think he also just has to go back to what's been working for us before. That change at centre back, for example, it causes a bit of Mbokazi, that passes that he can thread through in midfield with his left foot is something that is a strength of ours, and we lose it when you put him that far out because he's landing up playing direct balls a lot of the time, and to two players that were not really in the right space tonight to hold on to the ball and help the team get forward. So I think one, maybe it's Mbokazi coming back into the middle. The other centre back, Imi showed some good signs tonight. I was quite impressed with him, not following very often. But whether you play him or Sabisi is not really a thing. But having Mbokazi back in that centre for me would be important. I think now that almost Mokoena has to play based on the red card or should play, he gave us good sort of positive actions towards the end of the game, even with less players. And then it gives us that fluidity again to start playing, and we have wingers out wide. Like Apollos came on, even though the shot happened after the red card, he gave us a lot of energy up front and he got us playing. He found passes into the midfield also that made us look again like a footballing nation that we were, uh, call it a few months ago. So I think we have to go back to what has worked for us, number one. And then just give it another go. I was excited about the team. I expected a lot more out of the team tonight. And I think if we go back to what we've done before, I think we will, I'm not saying naturally get a positive result, but I think it will go much smoother for us because everyone knows their role. Apollos will know his role on the left-hand side. Lyle Foster is the only target man, so he doesn't feel like there's someone buzzing around him all the time. So he gets to hold onto the ball and find his comfortable space. And then we can have Mudau and Mudiba getting high up because it's more natural. Now they're getting into these corners and they have no one to support them. They're not able to really play comfortably like they're playing for their club teams every week. So my only change is in Mbokazi back. We have a left-footed player on the left, a right-footed player on the right, and we're a lot more comfortable in our build-up. And then we can start pushing players high. Our wingers are inside, our fullbacks are high. I think it will give us a lot. That's natural, in my opinion.
I watched the playoff for Czechia to come to the World Cup. And one thing that stood out for me was the number of crosses they put into the box, whether it's from set piece or whether it's from open play. And we mentioned this before in the AFCON period when we're doing our post-match and pre-match, that the crosses was something that we struggled to deal with. So again, that's an area of concern. And that's actually an area of concern generally for South African teams. If you remember the Champions League pyramids against Pirates, pyramids against Sundowns, the amount of crosses that were coming into the box. The same scenario is coming against Czech Republic, and at this level, there's not so much space for error because the crosses are good, the delivery is good, the guys who finish are good finishers. Patrick Schick is good with his head. Souček is good with his head. These are guys who do it for West Ham and for the teams that they play for week in and week out. So that's something that we really have to take into account for the next game. And that's why also I feel that the red card to Yaya is just it's a big blow. It's a big blow for us.
To jump on Musi's point, sorry, the question also we could have is what is Ronwen also more comfortable with? If we're putting pressure on the people that's delivering the cross and Ronwen comes out, like that cross was very good tonight for the second goal. It was an in swinger and it was in a very difficult space to come out. But because
Yeah.
there's so many numbers in the box, Ronman may also be caught up to be like, I have 4 or 5 people in front of me, they can deal with it. But now if it's almost only 2 or 3 people in front of him, maybe it'll be a little bit more aggressive to come out. But when the box is packed like that, that's another question for him is maybe this is not the best scenario for me because I have my hands. I'm able to come out and rise above everyone because there's space. But when there's no space, now do I come out and trip and someone bumps me and then it's a goal also? So it can swing either way, but he also needs to make that call too. We're gonna deal with a lot of crosses, but Madau's quick, Aubrey's quick to put pressure on the ball. And then it's the cross, and if Ronwen has space versus 2 other players, I think he can dominate as well.
Yeah, they had 12 crosses and 4 of them were successful and they score from it. So,
Yeah.
like Musi's mentioning, the next game, the profile of the team is physicality, height, and quality delivery and numbers inside the box. So, it'll be interesting to see how we nullify that.
Celine, what would you change for the next game?
I would do what Dale says, like just go back to what works. Did this work tonight? I don't think so. There was a couple of things that they did well. What are those things? I think they would need to go back and see what are the things that worked, what are the things that didn't work. But in my opinion, go back, like you've profiled your players. What are their strengths and their weaknesses? What are the things that can make the team better? I think if you look at those kinds of things, then I think, we can draw out a Bafana that has the ability, but hasn't really reached that potential in the last couple of games that I've seen. I think they are much better than what we are seeing at the moment. They're much better than what they portrayed over the last couple of months. But it has to be the right combinations, the right players on the field, in the right spaces that can give us that momentum, whether it's forward, whether it's backwards. I mean, we all know what these players are capable of. We all know where they play. We all know. But it has to show on the field. And again, I will say, this is the World Cup. Here, it's time to shine. And if you can't do that here, then again, we'll just be adding numbers, which is something we don't want to do. We don't want to know that as a South African supporter or an analyst, because we know we're better than this. We know the players. They can do this. So in my opinion, I think we should go back to what works. They need to look at what works for them, what game plan works for them. If they feel this work, then they should use it again.
Kulam, would you change formation, or would you want the coach to stick to what is his plan?
I don't know. It's interesting whether it's change formation, but I think important is to, and we haven't spoken about it maybe today, probably before we've spoken about. But this game in Pachua is what, 2,400 meters above sea level. So maybe that's where Yaya and Lyle struggled maybe a little bit. Maybe the Sundowns Pirates boys managed the game a little bit better. Going down to the next game we play in Atlanta. So we're going from us as a nation, as Bafana, going from 2,400 meters above sea level to 184 meters above sea level. So we should be able to improve and increase our intensity a lot. And maybe to nullify the height factor and the cross factor is to find a solution in that phase of the game. Increase the intensity, the pressing intensity, the closing of the players on the sides, like Hill spoke about and Musi spoke about. It's the only way to deal with the crosses, the best way. More pressure. Hopefully they don't dribble past, and we'll have those moments, and then it's to mark in the box. But personally, I'm not a fan of a back five, so I wouldn't want to see it again in that game. I'd like to see a little bit more speed for us to play out with. And we know we've seen with Moremi, seen with Apollo specifically, we've seen with Tapelo Maseko a little bit when he's coming to the last Bafana teams. There's a lot of speed coming out and a lot more directness. So it's to find maybe a balance in how to use, this is Musi that mentioned, use the strengths that we have to try and create some problems for the opponents. We know Czechia, a crossing team, that's what they're going to use. If we're a team that has better speed, better directness, to create that sort of problem. Maybe they're bigger, they turn a little bit slower. We can use our dynamism, our mobility, our ability to excel in 1v1s, get behind like Sailor did. I mean, we forced them into a red card situation when we had 8 players. We struggled to get towards and close to their box when we had 10 players on the field. It just doesn't make sense sometimes. So we have the ability, and maybe it's that increased intensity, use what we have in our arsenal to create challenges for them.
Yeah.
Mario, what's your verdict on a potential formation change?
I think similar to Gulam, I think we played to our strengths. I think we have players that can play in certain areas between the lines, some half spaces, and just to connect the team, that link between midfield and attack. If I look at also some of the data as well in terms of the number of through balls and not balls into feet, but balls into space. So we need someone that can supply that. And we've got runners, we've got players that can play, as I mentioned, in those spaces, but we've also got players that want the ball into space, but we need to supply, but we need to get the ball in those areas. So it'll be interesting to see what we go for, but we do have to play to our strengths, and we've got the qualities as well.
Hi, this is Carl Lewis from Football Insights. Thank you for watching the episode. This segment is proudly brought to you by Jomo. Jomo is designed for footballers with technique, precision, and speed. Jomo has a nice collection of sports apparel and boots. Their boots come with many features like the sock system, which wraps your ankle like a second skin. There's a rise in football of injuries like twisted ankles and ACLs when people change direction, but Jomo's boots come with the exo counter, which protects you and gives you a stable landing in the grass when you change direction. This boot will give you the protection you need. Make sure you head to the Jomo store and check out their latest apparel. To the Football Insight panel, thank you for another insightful conversation. That's all the time we have for today's episode. To the watchers, the supporters, the fans, we'd love to hear your thoughts on today's discussion. Let us know your opinion in the comments and tell us whether you agree or disagree with our analysis. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Football Insights.